Dun, dun, dun.
This is the China did this, but at what cost?
But at what cost? The U.S., we have sanctions on 32 countries or something like that, meaning we have economic war on 32 countries. Several of those are countries in the Caribbean, like Cuba. Several of them are Latin American countries.
I'm sorry, I knocked the table. That's my bad.
Central and South American countries. And these places, even though I haven't been to most of them, but I've been to a couple, are generally fucking gorgeous. Yeah. Like, many of them are beautiful. Even a country that is not beautiful generally has some beautiful places. But most of these countries, Venezuela and Cuba and Ecuador and Bolivia and Brazil, these places are just stunning. But the problem is when the media is trying to manufacture consent for our economic wars on these countries, they can't show them being gorgeous, happy places. Like, they know that propaganda wouldn't go well, right? If you were like, well, Venezuela's evil, and then they show a photo of just people dancing around, just like, hey, just having a blast.
Or like when we were in Cuba, and there were just people like playing cards in the street and having a fucking good old time.
Fucking sunshiny day, people playing dominoes in the streets, just having fun, eating a goddamn chalupa or something.
Isn't that a dog? No, that's Chihuahua.
I think you're thinking of the Taco Bell chalupa dog or what? Chihuahua. Taco Bell Chihuahua who sold chalupas. He was hawking chalupas.
You know what? Whatever. Chihuahuas are creepy. Anyway,
so they can't show that stuff. So how do you show it without showing it? How do you show these countries in these articles where you're talking about the country without making them look?
Well, and there's another side to this too, where you don't just want to show destitution, right? Because then people might feel empathy. So, for instance, like there are, there's parts of Havana, for instance, that are falling apart because they don't have any fucking money because of the embargo. Buildings that are in disrepair and things like that. And yeah, these images are shared. A friend of mine who went to Venezuela said that there's like that there were photographers that were taking pictures of like a trash can that was overflowing. Right next to it was like this beautiful community garden that they were completely ignoring. And so they were taking pictures of like the overflowing trash can. But you have to be careful. If you show too much destitution, then people start feeling empathy for those people, right? And that's not okay either, because then they might start calling for an end to the embargo.
Right. You
have to somehow make these people seem nefarious. And the places they live seem nefarious.
But like for, you just look at pictures of Cuba. If they were showing all these fucking colorful buildings.
Looks like that.
It legit looks like that.
It's so colorful and people are fucking wonderful. Everyone's like so kind and inviting.
This is like these are legit.
That's how it looks.
These are legit random streets in Havana.
Yes.
And if they showed this regularly, people would be like, wait, why do we?
Yeah. And also I want to go to there.
I want to go to there. Why do we hate them so much? So Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting discovered they have a trick to deal with this. Here's a photo of Venezuela. And this is a bit downtrodden, not even a clean area of Venezuela, but it looks pretty nice, colorful, fun. Here's how they show the photo in mainstream media. This is New York Times just a couple years ago during an election. And apparently this is a regular practice. They underexpose, they dim the photos. Here's another one. This is Venezuela during this it was a whole anti-Maduro propaganda, protest going on in 2019, headed by Charles Branson and some others. And it was all this hilarious bullshit. But even this photo does not look that bad, right? Unless you make it nefarious.
Exactly.
So this is how it actually showed up in the New York Times in 2020, was this dimmer. It also makes their skin color look darker, which I think also plays to racist white ideas about these places. Here's another one. Okay, kid in a field. Looks either nice or average. Like either this is kind of a picturesque sunny day, or it's an average, whatever, depends on maybe your view of things, but doesn't look so bad. However, this This shit.
I like the way that Ferris says, just turn down the brightness until it looks like the photo was taken during a total eclipse of the sun.
Well, it turned down the brightness until it looks like this kid is living in the like the real world in the Matrix when they burned out the sky.
Right.
Like that's the world he lives in.
It is really like it's remarkable because that looks. I mean, I don't like the sun, so I don't think it looks that great because I don't like being in direct sunlight. But for somebody who does, it looks quite nice. Yeah, it's just okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So here's another one. This is what it actually looks like.
Which looks like an aerial photo of like France or some shit.
Where is this one? Let's see. This is
that's the next
ran a
one.
piece.
No, that's the next one. So this is
up here.
Venezuela.
Here's the image. It illustrates a Times piece on Brazil.
On Brazil.
With the classic red baiting headline, if you don't use your land, these Marxists may take it.
That's a real headline.
That's a real headline from this month.
That's amazing.
Also,
like,
but so that's the dastardly dark version. Here's the reality.
Also, does not that looks like an aerial photo of like Germany or France or Italy? Like that looks lovely to me.
And they write, naturally, you don't want the photo with exposure properly adjusted because that would give the impression that the perfectly legal land reform the Times is describing was taking place in a land that's not under a Mordor-like permanent shadow.
Dude.
While the New York Times is the king of underexposed photos, it's far from the only outlet to turn down the brightness. The Atlantic ran a piece about Venezuela, explaining how its citizens of the once prosperous nation live amid the havoc created by socialism. You mean created by U.S. economic war, illiberal nationalism, and political polarization. And it was accompanied by this photo. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't even know what this photo is supposed to be.
I mean, clearly they're scared of whatever's darkening out the sun. Okay.
But it looks like a scene from like Don't Look Up or something. Like, what am I even looking? Like, what is this a picture of?
Here's the actual photo, which even though this is during a protest and, you know, some of these people look angry and stuff, this photo still looks pretty nice.
Well, you know what it looks like here? A shitty photo. Like if I turned this in as a photojournalist, like an outlet, they'd be like, "What is this? What the fuck am I looking at?"
Right.
I don't know what this guy is.
Well, you know what it
There's
is
no context here.
But a lot of protesters cover their faces because they don't want all the cop cameras to be picking them up, which is a perfectly justifiable fear or something that a lot of people don't want. And yet, showing photos of, especially Venezuelans, with covered faces serves to scare white Americans.
Well,
so
and again, as you pointed
it's useful. This is useful to scare people.
They look darker, which is also a fear for
Right.
the nice white folks of the United States.
And I love that although it has become kind of more common for people to get angry about the racism of either darkening photos of black people in some publications or lightening photos of black people so that it's more acceptable if it's like a celebrity or something. Although those are often called out, this type of racist shit is not called out. Like, other than this article, I've never seen it called out.
No.
The Wall Street Journal ran an article about lithium mining in Chile's Atacama Desert, where serious concerns about the environment stand in the way of efficient extraction of resources by multinational corporations. Or, as the journal put it, public companies risk mismanaging the resource in a region, because corporations really manage well the resource, where state-run firms have long been mired in corruption and nepotism. There's no nepotism or corruption inside corporate, the corporate world. The piece was headed by a photo of one of the evaporation ponds from which the lithium is extracted. Look how dim and scary it is under state rule. That is a very dim situation under state rule. Here's the reality of the photo. They write, deserts, of course, are typically bright, sunny places, but running a realistically lit photo of a lithium mine isn't going to give the reader the proper image of a location mired in corruption.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, lithium mines are pretty gross and they are not eco-friendly. So the argument could be, should we be mining this much lithium, but not, should the state handle it? Or should we get these corporations that typically just shit all over an entire nation?
Right.
Yeah.
Back when China was still trying to wipe out COVID, Reuters ran a piece about daily coronavirus cases in China falling from 102 to 81. Though this was a tiny fraction of the number of COVID cases at the time in the U.S., which recorded 240,000 new cases that December,
December
20th. We were still supposed to read this as bad news, which you can tell because the accompanying photo looked like this. Dun, dun, dun.
This is the China did this, but at what cost?
But at what cost? Look at miserable China. Here's the actual photo.
And the actual photo looks like a stock photo of like people living in the city. You know, like it's just like the stock photo of like, oh, person in city.
Yeah.
But the top one looks like, oh, some shit's about to go down. This is like, it's like Independence Day, you know, like the alien aircraft has just covered up the sun.
And then fairness lets us know that while the darkening technique is usually used on photographs from official enemy nations, it can also be used with internal enemies. When the New Yorker ran a profile, this is back in 2015, by film critic blah, 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 about British Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, which compared him to the class grouch making trouble but never headway.
I don't really know what class grouch is. Like, oh, I don't know. I use a class lens to look at the effects of capitalism.
Oh, I thought it meant that he's always calling everything a class war or something.
That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. Someone who makes you all roll your eyes whenever he raises his hand because you know what's coming. Oh, no, they meant classes in like school class. Like the class grouch.
Oh. Wow.
Anyway,
that is
it's stupid.
So juvenile.
It's stupid on so many levels.
Oh my God.
Stupid on so many levels. But so they're trying to trash Jeremy Corbyn. This is back when he was kind of at nearing the peak of his potential, but nearly winning the prime ministership, which, you know, how much would UK have shit itself if, God forbid, a socialist were prime minister? So they did everything they could to attack him. So this is an attack piece in the New Yorker. Here's the image that ran. Oh, what a sinister, grouchy.
It looks like Saruman from Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. Whatever that means. With an ordinary exposure applied to the photo, Corbyn doesn't look nearly so much like someone whom you would naturally shun.
Yeah, it looks like, you know,
average old man. It's easy to see how this basic processing of image serves these outlets' ideological needs, exploiting the crude association between dark and bad. I remember this. In 1994, Time magazine darkened O.J. Simpson's skin to make his mugshot seem scarier, and there was kind of an uproar over it. But there's never an uproar if you just darken Venezuelans. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, and below that, there was some editing guidelines from the National Press Photographers Association, which states editing should maintain the integrity of the photographic image's content and context. Do not manipulate images or add or alter sound in any way that can mislead viewers or misrepresent subjects. That would be good photojournalism. I mean, basically, this is the photographic way of, you know, of writing propaganda. This is photographic propaganda.
It's photographic propaganda.
And I'd say it's even more nefarious because it's much more difficult to have media literacy about something like this, because you can read a sentence and go, oh, that sounds, I don't know about that. Like, I've learned that, you know, when something says, an intelligence, a man close with the intelligence agency said this and the other, like you start learning like, oh, that sounds like bullshit.
Learning the tricks. Yeah.
But with photographs, you're like, I don't know. Maybe it just is that dark. I don't know. I haven't been to Venezuela. I don't know. Maybe it just looks like that.
People that are skeptical of this stuff would probably not know to question that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it is very, very nefarious, and I mean, fucking great job, Fair, for pointing that out, because that is something that I will now look. Not that I read these legacy corporate medias anyway, but something that I will look at and point out more often, because I think that's a great point. Also, because imagery, as opposed to like language in terms of journalism, I'm not talking about like poetry, but images are a more emotional thing. Like they hit you emotionally, whereas reading a headline doesn't. It's more of a logical processing. But seeing an image it immediately hits you emotionally. So all of a sudden you see an image, you don't even process it logically, and you're just thinking, oh, that's fucking dark and creepy. So socialism's bad.
Right.
Like it subconsciously happens.
And to me, it just kind of sums up, there is no end to how our media will try and manipulate us. They will do it in photographs. They will do it in the language. They will do it in every way they possibly can to make sure that our consent is manufactured, our anger is manufactured against the proper quote unquote enemies of the US empire. And these dark images just add to that. And I was shocked because I'd never really thought of it, that these images would be darkened, and it wasn't something that was like on my radar. But of course, I'm not shocked that they'll go to any level to manipulate the nation and the world.